Welcome back to Cryptos Are Us. I am George. We're all George. So today I want to talk about Bitcoin. It's hovering above $49,000. So that's fantastic compared to our recent low of $46,000. However, it's not just Bitcoin. Altcoins and crypto market cap have gone up significantly within the last 2 days. So does this mean we're officially in that Santa rally? And does this mean that we have found that bottom and Bitcoin and altcoins are ready to head higher? Well, I do have some interesting things to share about that. So let's get started. So starting with Bitcoin, you can see it's above 49,000. It was actually as high as 49.5 this morning, but we are definitely looking pretty good. Bitcoin is heading in the right direction. And I think that 50,000 barrier, that psychological barrier, is very important because you could see when Bitcoin fell down from 58,000, it had a significant drop down to like 42.5. Obviously, there was a flash crash there. We recovered. And since then, we've been hugging this red line, this 47.8 mark. And Bitcoin had a very hard time breaking above 50,000. It tried to do so over here when we first fell down, right? Bitcoin kind of stalled right around 50,000. Then Bitcoin tried to break. It was about 51.7, couldn't hold. Over here it was about 50,800. Over here about 50,000, right? So it's been having a hard time holding above $50,000. What does this mean? Well, if Bitcoin breaks this 50,000 mark, that means we finally found that bottom, right? The consolidation period I've been telling you guys a lot about reminds me of what happened when Bitcoin was stuck in the 30,000s. And I do have something to show you about that, but it does remind me of that. If we could break through this 50,000 barrier, well, next stop will probably be about 54,000, and after that, 58,000. And then after that, we're not too far off from our previous high. Now, what are some things that do indicate that this is a bottom and we are heading higher? Well, there's a couple things. So let's start with this. This is interesting. This is from Yuri, who is charting and using fractal patterns of crypto fear and greed index. Now, this is more sophisticated than what I usually use it for, which is just looking at levels of extreme fear and extreme greed. But this is actually plotting it and actually using a fractal pattern to compare what Bitcoin went through when it dropped to 40,000 versus now. And if you look at it, if you look at the patterns, it's very, very similar. So according to this, according to Yuri, he believes that we are ready to bounce just like when we were at $40,000. Quite interesting. Also, Plan C shares this 140-day market realized gradient delta. And he makes the argument that we are bouncing off the support, the same level, again, from September-October timeframe, right? We're bouncing off the same level, which a 189-day uptrend followed. Okay, so back when Bitcoin fell down to about 40,000-ish, it went up for 189 days, right? Basically going to our recent top of 69,000. And if you're using this metric, we're at that same point. The same point where Bitcoin is about to reverse, about to head higher. And if it does, we could see another 189-day uptrend. So both of these are indicating that we are turning up. We have found bottom, we have consolidated long enough, and we are heading higher. Interesting, interesting. What else is there? Well, this is another one. Again, talking about Bitcoin and how it consolidated, and we may be done with consolidation. So this is looking at basically Bitcoin going from July all the way to about September. So this is when Bitcoin was around $30,000, and you could see that it was many tops, and they were lower and lower and lower until we had that one breakthrough where it was higher than the previous high, right? And if you look at now, it's the same thing. We finally broke through a previous high, and that is indicating that, well, maybe it's finally ready to move higher. So any one of these metrics normally don't mean a whole lot, but when you combine them all together, when all the metrics and patterns and TA and plus you add in the Santa rally, right? This is all adding up to something and something special. And lastly, I want to show you this. This is also pretty good for Bitcoin, and that is the miners. Look at this. Stronghold Digital Mining buys additional 9,000 Bitcoin mining rigs. And not only them, TerraWolf buys 15,000 rigs. So you could see that the miners, the ones that are supporting this network, the Bitcoin network, is only getting stronger. These guys are buying more and more and more and more miners. You don't hear about them ever selling anymore. Back in 2018, 19, 20, there's been many periods where you see these mining companies actually turning off their rigs or selling it. That's not the case. It's all-out war with these guys. They're buying as much as they can. They're taking loans against their Bitcoin and buying even more, right? And if the miners are this confident and they are not selling at all, well, that's very positive for Bitcoin in the long run. Lastly, I want to talk about 3 different altcoins because there are some significant news about them. Starting with Matic. Matic has been on fire recently. One of the ones I've been very bullish on. I told you guys a lot about. Look at this one. TechDev is looking at the pattern Matic now versus Ethereum back in 2017. And it's looking very, very, very similar. It's almost identical, right? It's almost identical. And the time frames and you look at the RSI, everything is looking very, very similar. But how could this be? Well, if you think about it, it makes sense because Matic started as a layer 2 EVM compatible chains that was meant to help dApp makers scale. But since then, they have grown into like a really powerful L1. But they are still EVM compatible and they're Solidity compatible, right? So dApp makers could choose if they want to launch on Ethereum or a Polygon. And right now, they're choosing to launch on Polygon. In fact, just last week, I covered a story about how there's more ERC20 tokens being created on Matic than Ethereum right now. So, I mean, if you look at it that way, well, this kind of makes sense that Matic could be moving the same direction as or mimicking Ethereum's direction in 2017 when Ethereum had that explosive run up. So we could see something similar with Matic going forward. Also, if you look at this, Opera, which is a browser, it's been around for quite some time. They're eyeing Polygon for next mobile wave integration. So obviously that's going to help. I talked about Reddit is partnering up with Polygon as well, right? A ton of NFT marketplaces, including Coinbase NFT marketplace, is rumored to be on Polygon as well. And there's just so much going on, right? So it does make sense that Polygon could be mimicking what happened to Ethereum in 2017. And they're also broadening their ecosystem with NFT and play during games. This is an example of one that's coming out. It's pretty hyped up, and it's, of course, built on Polygon and not Ethereum. So Polygon right now is definitely doing all the right things and has all the right momentum. The last 2 things I want to talk about is Terra and Shiba. I talked about Terra last night, so I'm not going to go too much more into it, but I did want to show you guys this, how Terra's TVL is now at 20.14 billion, and that's way above now Binance Smart Chain. Even though it's a far distance from Ethereum, you could see that Terra's TVL has gone up significantly within the past month or so. So in terms of TVL total value locked of all the chains, it is sitting at number 2, above Binance Smart Chain, above Avalanche, above Solana. That's a pretty big jump. And if you look at where Terra is on CMC versus, say, Binance Smart Chain or Solana or some of these other guys, right? It does definitely show that they are undervalued. So you can look at this ratio too. Market cap to TVL, they're one of the only ones that's under 2. So quite interesting, right? And lastly, just want to give you guys an update on Shiba as One Whale continues to buy, as One Whale bought 134 million of Shiba out of nowhere. So if you're a Shiba fan and you're clinging on hope that it will continue upwards, well, this is very positive. And I also do like Shiba overall because their team is getting involved with Gaming. They're going to come out their own play-to-earn game. Of course, they're still expanding their NFT marketplace. And Shiba Swap is still growing. So these are all positive things. And if there are whales that continue to buy, well, that's also positive too. That's it for this update. Overall, things are looking pretty darn good. So let's see what happens next. Smash up the like, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for my future video. Take care. Bye-bye.